What's going on, everyone? This is Trevor Casabar coming back at you once again, licensed life insurance agent. And in this video, in this episode of Storytime, I'm going to be telling you guys about two instances of the types of people, agencies, and uplines that you should avoid when navigating and getting into the life insurance industry. So, let's get into it. The first story comes before I got into legacy family life. I had just gotten all my licenses. I'd already had at least around 10 states. And at this time, I was trying to look for a good agency. I wanted to get into something like Legacy or another kind of big agency that was kind of changing the game. But other than that, I was kind of looking around and I was doing my interview process, which I do from Globe Life, FFL, all these other agencies. It was all this stuff that I really didn't like what I was hearing as far as their leads, as far as the way they sell, all these different things. It just sounded super sus to me, honestly. So one day I'm scrolling Instagram and I see these ads saying, hey, if you want to get into the life insurance industry, free leads, 80% comp, and we take care of everything. We take care of the dialer. So I go, okay, what's there to lose? I sign up. I talk to one of the guys. He runs me through the whole rundown. If you guys have been in the space for a little bit, you can probably know exactly kind of the agency slash, world of life insurance that I'm talking about. These are young dudes. I won't name names, but if you guys have been around for a bit, you can probably know who I'm talking about. So I ask all my in-depth questions. They're like, wow, you'd probably kill it because you're asking some pretty in-depth questions. And I go, yeah, because I did my research. One of the questions that I asked is, do you mind if I ask someone like on your team or another testimonial or someone who's doing well? And they go, yeah, cool. So I do that. And afterwards, I still don't believe it because something is still sus. So afterwards, I proceed to talk to 4 to 5 more people within the agency, and I continue to learn more about this agency. Basically, long story short, they were a branch off of another big life insurance agency. They started their own thing, and currently, as of this moment, as of beginning middle of October 2025, they're currently around level 3 to 4. Within the next 2 to 3 years, they'll probably be at like 6 or 7 downlines. But anyways, I keep getting information from these people the more questions that I ask them. After a while of talking to different quote unquote managers and uplines, I go, okay, time to choose an upline. So I see the leaderboard and I go, okay, this guy's pretty consistent. Let's go with him. This guy's like a 20-year-old kid, supposedly making 10 to 20K commission on a consistent basis, selling 40 to 50K AP. So that's pretty good for a 20-year-old kid. Mind you, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he's one of the best, then obviously he must have some sauce. I want to learn from the best. So the first 3 days, I can tell there's not really much training at all, if any. If anything, what he considers training is just going over the script. Mind you, right, I was already in the headspace of watching a lot of Peter Roberts videos, NEPQ, all these different things of how to actually sell and the mindset and psychology behind that. And so when I'm looking at this script, I go, there's literally zero discovery. You just go from the intro, breeze through, get a little bit of underwriting, and then just go straight to presentation without building up any value. And there's basically no objection handling. So I'm like, what kind of script is this? And the first 3 days, I'm basically going back and forth with him, being like, hey, I just got these states. Hey, what about my E&O insurance? Can you get that to me? Can we get that ball rolling? Hey, what about all the other carriers that I'm going to sign? Can we get the ball rolling with that so I can sign up? Because that's going to take another 1 to 2 weeks, right, for them to get back to me, to get contracted and all these things. And I can tell within these first 3 days that this guy's basically just stringing me along. It's not that good. He's like, just wait, just be patient, blah, 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 blah. So the third day that we have a quote unquote training meaning we literally just either run over the script or we went over some of his calls because he was still producing. And what he said in this training while he's going over some of the calls is something that really throws me off and was giving a lot of red flags. Ethically, morally, just everything. Super huge red flags. And he basically said, and I quote, as he's going over some of these calls, okay, so something you guys have to realize, right, is that these old people, some of them are absolutely cooked. They're completely fucking retarded. So you got to go straight to the point with these people. And I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, whoa. Hold on now, okay? Mind you, again, I'm from Hawaii. We're talking about elders. We're talking about kupuna here. That's not the way you talk about kupuna like that, okay? In anywhere, in any scenario. Grandma, grandpa, nothing like that. You do not talk about people like that, especially that age, or just anybody in general who is a prospect or a customer. That's just being a terrible, indecent human being. And so my mistake was not calling him out right there because I could have and I should have. But from that point on, I was just like, you know what, this guy is not who I thought he was, signed up for. I'm going to find another upline. So the next few days, I tried calling other people who I was interested in and possibly getting a different upline for, same agency, and they were all basically ghosting me. And then one night, as I'm about to go to sleep, one of the quote unquote managers calls me and says, "Yo, why have you been calling all these other people and all these other managers? We don't want you on your team anymore. That's sus." And so I'm just very confused here because, well, mainly the one reason why I wanted a different upline is because you have this literal kid talking smack about the exact customers and clients that he's serving. And also because it just sounds very, very shady. So I basically sent a screenshot to one of the guys who replied to me and I said, "Tell this to all your managers." And you can pause here, see what I said. And almost 30 seconds later, as if it's like he didn't even read the message, this is what he replied with. Yeah, very professional as a licensed life insurance agent. Real professional, bro. So just for privacy's sake, right, again, I'm not going to, exploit the agency. I'm not going to exploit the names, the first and last names. But if you guys have been in the space for a bit and are noticing a trend, you guys will probably know what I'm talking about. I'll just kind of give you some hints. These are guys from Florida. They're young 20-something-year-olds, some of them as young as 18, fresh out of high school, just trying to get into the industry. And the way that they market to the younger demographic is they present it more as a make money online opportunity. And that in itself should have been some red flags. And honestly, it's kind of my fault that I should have seen that. I guess the good thing about this story is that, number one, I wasn't really fully brought on anyways to the team. I didn't sign any carrier contracts, nothing like that. And number two, there was no harm, no foul. I literally just walked away. I said, "You guys are terrible human beings. I'm never working with you guys again," basically. Luckily, it all worked out for me because I was at Legacy Family Life for a good 3 weeks and it was an amazing experience. Fast forward after my time at Legacy Family Life and I am kind of in the jungle looking for another upline. And mind you, I considered possibly going to places like Globe Life or FFL. My actual past coworkers who I still keep in touch with are like, "Bro, do not go there, do not go there, do not go there. Just don't do it, bro. Don't do it." And it's around like 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to get back on the board. You know what I mean? I need to start producing again or else I'm going to lose the skill. And so one day I'm scrolling Instagram. See, this is where I went wrong because this will sound familiar. I'm scrolling Instagram and I see this guy. He's running an ad that says that he's recruiting a downline and that he himself over the past few months has been producing consistently 40 to 50K AP. And I go, okay, well, that sounds interesting. So, I schedule a meeting with him. I tell him a little bit about my experience. And the guy sounds really great. He's a father. He's a young father. He has a son of his own. He has a wife. So he's got a good head on his shoulders. I told him straight up, I'm like, "Brah, I'm not doing any downline, nothing like that until a year in. And my intent is to just get good at solo producing. As long as the leads are good, as long as I don't have to pay for anything, it's all good." And he goes, "You know what, bro? That makes sense." He tells me a few things that I'm kind of suspicious about, which is something along the lines of basically after a few weeks, I'm essentially going to have to pay for the dialer, which already on top of E&O and toolkits, that's like 70. So make that, another few $100. Hey, you know what I mean? It is what it is. So I take it as is. And so like 2.5 weeks in on a Monday, I decide, you know what? I need to just make a decision. And I eventually choose this guy. I get contracted with him. The only one carrier that we're basically using is Combined Insurance, which all these other people are totally hyping up Chubb, but if you compare it to like all these other carriers, it's really nothing. It's like very minimum of the road. Chubb is not the best and it's not the worst. It's okay. It's decent. You know what I mean? If you're going to use Chubb as the only carrier, I mean, it's decent. It'll get you there. And so what ends up happening is I get on the dialer, and mind you, this is a very different dialer than I was using at my previous agency. The leads are very different. The response is very different. The way you do the intro and the script is very, very different. I mean, the script itself is, completely different as well. So I'm kind of Frankensteining what I learned, kind of mashing things together to see what works. While this is going on, while I'm dialing for these few days, I'm getting word from this upline guy that things are about to change and that we're probably going to move to different leads and a different publisher. Also, something to note that I should have saw a red flag in is that this guy, this upline that I was basically with, he was partnered with that other previous agency that I told you guys about. He was with them for 6 months, went off on his own, and is now partnered with him. So we're essentially just using the same leads, the same dialer, all that same stuff if I would have somehow stayed with that previous agency that I talked about back in story number 1. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I'm just having to learn this new dialer, having to get used to these leads. Okay, that's fine. Outbound, outbound, outbound. It's very, very different from the leads that I've been doing. Different to the point where the dial to contact rate is super high. I'd say every 1 in 3 or 4 dials, I would get someone to contact. So if I dialed 150 people, about 75 to 100 people would end up a contact. Now, on top of that though, these contacts were terrible. Basically, you would pick up the phone and you would try to, make sure and double check, hey, Miss Betty, I just want to make sure this is for that whole life insurance for your final expenses. Were you still interested in that? No, I don't remember even filling out that form. Please take me off your list. I'm like, okay. If I'm getting multiple people where they say that they're not interested, that's all the people's fault of not dispoing correctly. They just throw them back in the system. And then all these other people who signed up that don't want to be called anymore are just getting spammed and spammed and spammed. So after a few days of dialing and dialing and dialing, and that has nothing to do with my sales skills, that has nothing to do with my actual input or output, that just has everything to do basically with the leads and the type of systems that they're using. I just go, you know what, whatever. I'm just going to wait. And so while I was just kind of waiting for things to change, in the background, I'm doing things in marketing. I'm still making some money on the side, right? About a week later, my upline guy says, hey, we need to get a meeting together. We need to do some things. So we do. And we start getting like at least an hour meetings every single day, some training here and there, some new scripts. He also tells us that we're going to be working with a new publisher. He's talking to some publishers basically for leads or whatever. At one point he goes, okay, it's going to be like 10 or 20 bucks a lead and it's going to be pretty cheap and we're going to be all good. At another point, he goes, okay, well, they're going to be free leads. They're going to be all inbound, but you just have to close like 10 to 20%. So out of like 9 or 10 leads, you just have to close 1 to 2 of them. And I'm like, okay, cool. And by the way, it'll be at like a 40% comp. I mean, even if it's 40 or 50, whatever, I'm down with it as long as the leads are free. So I'm still waiting. I'm still doing marketing on the side. And then about another week passes by and I hear, okay, now we're going with this publisher. He sounds pretty good. We're basically getting all his off run from his leads that he does at a call center. So now it's going to be, you have to pay 40 bucks a pop per lead. These are all inbound. We're just going to be doing straight exclusive inbound, no more outbound. Higher intent, 40 bucks a pop. And if you guys were to drop 400 bucks a day, that's 10 leads. If you were to sell 1 to 2 a day, you would make your money back. I understand, right? You have to invest in your own business and your own, marketing and all that, because this is a business we're running, right? As far as when you're in life insurance. But again, remember, I literally came from LOA model. I'm still very much in the jungle. Like, I'm still kind of skeptical as far as dropping money. I want to basically just be in a free leads program as long as I can, so that I myself can just get better at the skill. So this all just kind of came very much out of left field and all these different things that were happening all at once. On top of that, there seems to be this one of the new guys that came onto the team who's basically a friend of the main guy. He starts becoming like this right-hand man to him. He's selling left and right, but I could just basically tell by the way of his tone and his mindset that like, it's all approval closes. It's not actually good selling. And something tells me that he actually doesn't care. And so one day, kind of more towards like the afternoon of my day, around 4 p.m., I sit down and have a talk with him. I'm like, hey, let's do a role play. He's like, sure. So I kind of end up going through my Frankenstein script and I'm kind of going through and he's like, bro, why are you asking all these questions? Bro, this intro is crazy. Why are you doing so much underwriting? And my response is, well, I mean, you got to think about it this way. If you have multiple carriers, you want to put them in the best position possible. Even if you have one carrier like combined, you still want to put them in the best position possible. And sure, you don't need the full story as far as underwriting. You just need kind of a snapshot, but you still need to ask all these questions. And he goes, no, you don't. You just need to get like very bare minimal basics and just get straight to it because that's all they care about. And so we end up not even going through discovery and doing the full role play after we don't even get past underwriting. And basically for the next 20 to 30 minutes, he just ends up spilling the beans to me on his whole kind of mindset. Now, if you guys have watched my E&A video, link in the description right here, you guys can go watch it. You would know that there's the E and the A, right? And I could tell just by the way this guy was speaking, this guy had leaned heavily towards the A, to the point where like he literally said this outright, like he didn't give two shits about people. He eventually told me that he's been in the car sales industry for the past 5 years. And I go, okay, well that makes sense because you're just in it for the money. You don't actually care if people, have money or they don't, as long as you get the sale. And what really ticked me off is that he literally said this. I wish I recorded it, but he literally said this. I wrote it down and I quote, "You're not actually supposed to give a fuck about the client." Red flag, red flag. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't care about the client? And he's like, you know what? I understand, Trevor, right? It's like, it's good to have that kind of mindset, but like, this is sales at the end of the day. You need to be an absolute shark. And so on one hand, I'm like, I can kind of understand that perspective, but at the same time, I'm like, this is different. These are grandparents. These are older people. You still have to care about them on some basis. Sure, you can be to the point, right? and like, trying to get them, depending on their buyer archetype, trying to get them, the information as fast as possible. But you still need to secure the sale. I also asked him about like things like objection handling, because there was basically nothing in the script, the shitty script that they were using and he's using. And I'm like, okay, well, what about objection handling? And he basically just brushed it off and said, well, you just keep going. And he was basically doing his version of what's called an approval close, which is something like this, where it's like, they throw an objection and you just go, okay, Miss Betty, well, we don't have to do it today. Well, all we have to do is let's just get you approved. Let's just see if we can even get you approved, and then we can move on from there. Full on approval close. People never do that. That's something I learned. Never, never, ever, ever lock in a sale on an approval close, because you're basically locking it in on the fact that they're just getting approved, not actually tying down the emotional need to the policy. So if you do that and you do approval closes, you will 100% get a refund and a cancellation and a chargeback 3-4 months down the line. It's bound to happen. And then I ask him, okay, well, what about towards the ending when you need to secure the sale, and do you like give them their phone number or whatever? And he's like, no. I go, what do you mean no? It's like, what if Miss Betty, when she passes away, the daughter or the son comes to you and they need to make the claim? And he dead ass goes, guys, I kid you not, he goes, that's not my problem. I would just send them to Combine. That's not my problem. I just sold them the thing. Not good, guys. Red flag, red flag. A few days after that, basically after this experience, a new cat who's new to the industry, completely green, who's in the group, he asks a question about the combined carrier. I answer some of them, basically. He was asking about like, okay, well, how do I ask questions about underwriting? And the way these guys are teaching is just like very broad, not that much in depth, And the way I was taught is like somewhere in the middle, or like to the very extreme, which is like, you go down the full list. Do you have diabetes? Do you have high blood pressure, cancer, blah, 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 blah. Have you been in the hospital for the past 2 to 3 years? You go in depth. That's the way I was taught. And the way these guys were teaching was like very, very surface level of like, do you have any medical conditions or any medications? Super, super basic, super level. I hate that shit. I really do. And so this kid was basically asking for Combine specifically, if they have diabetes and high cholesterol, what would they be put in? And this guy that I had spoken to the previous few days, he said he would go into preferred. And I was like, no, that's wrong. That would not be preferred. He would either go standard or substandard, basically. And this guy's like, no, that's wrong. 95% of the time, they would go preferred. And so I then proceeded to go literally on the Combine website, go down to the bottom section where it shows specifically, what they could be approved for, preferred, standard, substandard, graded. I literally screenshotted what it said on the site. And then afterwards, I ran a scenario. I said, okay, let's run a scenario. So I ran a scenario of a guy who's in Arkansas, 55 years of age, just retired, 6 foot, 220 pounds, non-smoker, diabetes, high cholesterol, lisinopril for the cholesterol, and insulin. Insulin for Combine, if you're taking insulin for your diabetes, you go straight to graded. You just go straight to graded. If you're not taking insulin for your diabetes, which is very, very, very low likelihood, extremely low likelihood that you have diabetes and you're not either on insulin, metformin, Mounjaro, Ozempic, none of that other stuff. Even if you're not on any of that, there's still a very, very, very extremely low chance that you'll get preferred. You might go in standard, you'll probably go in substandard. And I ran that scenario, sent that to him, and I sent that to the other guy. And then I see on my notifications on the group chat, it says, Trevor has left the chat. And I go, okay, that's kind of sus. So then I text and I call some other people who are in the group who I trust. And I go, hey, what happened? And they go, I don't know, what happened to you? And it turns out, here's another screenshot right here. Basically, the main guy kicked me out because his little ego got bruised, and the secondary guy's ego got bruised because I proved them both wrong. And so at the time of this recording, I have to have a conversation with the main guy and just ask him to release me because I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm just gonna be like, just release me, we'll split amicably, and then I can go our separate ways. Because basically what it comes down to in my perspective is that he said all these things, he promised all these things, and then his actions said otherwise, and he was just taking me all over the place because things changed so much. On top of that, right, I will not allow myself to be in an environment either digitally or physically with people who do not have the right intentions and who are not in this industry for the right reasons. I will not take that. And yeah, so that's kind of the boat that I sit in for that agency. I'm actually currently looking for another one, but luckily, I still have friends within the life insurance space, and I'm still going to be just fine because I actually have a few options, like 3 or 4 other options that are actually suitable and I think are probably going to be a better jumping off point than this guy. I guess the big lessons to take out of both of these stories is be observant, stick to your morals, stick to your values, actually doing it for the right reasons, which is trying to help people. Don't go for approval closes, because that never works. That never ends up in the long run. And just be a good person. Don't be a sleazy salesman like most of these other people in the industry. Don't be just a salesman, okay? Be an actual professional who's wanting to help people. Be an actual good person. And so with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I know it was a little bit longer, a little bit in depth, but I hope that both of these stories and both of these experiences can kind of shed some light a little bit on a portion of the industry that at least I've touched and that I've been in, and possibly kind of shine a light on things that you guys need to avoid as well when getting in this industry and also just navigating it in total. So with that said, folks, thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And as always, I will see you folks in the next video. Peace. Aloha.